Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Let me make sure I am up because I will be extraordinarily pissed if I look back and I find that that wasn't the case. I've been looking at the story for a few days now, and because I've been doing live shows, I haven't had time to get back to this particular thing. Good, everything's green. The first time I saw this story, it annoyed the shit out of me when I saw it, because I thought the media was fawning over this guy, acting as if this was a completely different quantity, and acting as if what he was doing was this kind of integrity-filled thing. What I'm talking about is Jeff Flake. So, here's some stories. People keep having this conversation about the civil war that's in the Democratic Party. It's like, oh my God, these guys are going at each other. There's going to be war for the soul of the Democratic Party and all this other stuff. What about Republicans? Donald Trump has not been able to get whatever the hell agenda that he's been trying to get through accomplished because he's had people, for the most part, who's been against his interests or don't like him. Let me say they don't like him. They don't like him. This has always amazed me. And you would hear some of these Republicans come out and they would make these speeches and everything else. John McCain, you know, would say something. Lindsey Graham would say something. And now we have Jeff Flake. Jeff Flake is on his way out, because Jeff Flake is going to lose his primary coming up. But Jeff Flake has turned this into, this is my moment of integrity. I must say something about Donald Trump. Let's take a look at this, because I have comments. This is The Guardian. Let's see if I can show this real quick so people know what I'm talking about. I put the article at the bottom. Oh, that didn't work. That's failing miserably. I'm not sure why it's doing that. All right. Well, the articles are at the bottom. This one is Battle Hymns of the Republicans. Trump Civil War is just getting started. Flake and Corker have fired shots, but other senior Republicans are keeping their heads down as Steve Bannon's readies an all-out assault on the establishment. Steve Bannon in Breitbart magazine. That's awesome. Donald Trump has barely left the U.S. Capitol on Tuesday after meeting with Republican senators when Jeff Flake took to the Senate floor. He delivered a barnstorming speech excoriating the state of the Republican Party under the stewardship of the president. Let's show that speech so everybody knows what we're talking about. Let's see. There we are. Alright, let's take a look at this barnstorming speech that they're recounting.
In this century, a new phrase has entered the language to describe the accommodation of a new and undesirable order, that phrase being the new normal. But we must never adjust to the present coarseness of our national dialogue with the tone set at the top. We must never regard as normal the regular and casual undermining of our democratic norms and ideals. We must never meekly accept the daily sundering of our country. The personal attacks, the threats against principles, freedoms and institution, the flagrant disregard for truth and decency, because politics can make us silent when we should speak, and silence can equal complicity. I have children and grandchildren to answer to, and so, Mr. President, I will not be complicit or silent. I've decided that I would be better able to represent the people of Arizona and to better serve my country and my conscience by freeing myself of the political consideration that consumed far too much bandwidth and would cause me to compromise far too many principles. To that end, I am announcing today that my service in the Senate will conclude at the end of my term in early January 2019.
Donald Trump is a compromise of his principle. I have kids. My conscience is on me. I need to leave because my conscience is on me. You're leaving because you're going to lose your primary. Be honest. This is The Guardian again. Flake. I couldn't sleep at night having to support Donald Trump. Senator Jeff Flake said he couldn't sleep at night having to support or condone the actions and behaviors of Donald Trump, and that he was confident the Republican Party would eventually distance itself from the president's brand of politics. These are issues of... This is not the issue of substance. It's the politics of it. It's the politics of it. It's not the reality of it. It's the politics of it. I couldn't sleep at night having to embrace the president or condoning his behavior or being okay with some of his positions, Flake told the Washington Post in an interview published Saturday. I just couldn't do it. It was never in the cards. Flake made headlines this week when he announced in a lengthy speech on the Senate floor that he would not seek re-election in 2018 because he could no longer stand behind Trump, and that he felt his brand of conservatism was no longer in step with mainstream GOP. Polling data, this is what's important. This is what's relevant in all of this conversation. The only relevant real part is polling data showed Flake likely losing the GOP primary next year, in which he faced the challenge from Kelly Ward, a former Arizona state senator, and an ally of Trump who has already received the endorsement of former White House chief strategist and Breitbart News chief Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon. This is him again. I knew that when I spoke out at the time, I was out of step with a lot of Republican primary voters, but I thought I had to do it. I had hoped, and I still hope, and I'm confident at some point that the fever would break, but it's just become more and more apparent that it certainly wasn't going to break by next year. You know, the Washington Post showing Flake and all this other stuff, that's great, that's great. You found somebody else who's going to attack Donald Trump, and that person is a Republican. Republicans do it too. Republicans love black voters. They love black Republicans because they can say, hey, here's one of us. We can support a black guy now because he's black. It's awesome. I have a question. I have a few questions, but I have one main question. If this is a position of integrity, okay. If this is a position of integrity, okay. Was it a position of integrity to support the wars in Iraq? Was it a position of integrity to support this warmongering all throughout the United States? I mean, all throughout the world by the United States military personnel? Is it a position of integrity to give plutocrats, people who don't need more in tax dollars, in order to gut services and programs that go to the people in this particular country, including a large percentage of which are Republican voters? Is it? When did these things become a position of integrity? Now, what I don't get is Donald Trump, to me, he's gross, he's over the top, but he's typical Republican. The things that he's doing is the exact same things that any typical Republican was going to do. Do Republicans believe in climate change in normal circumstances? No, they don't. Meaning, if a Republican got in that office, would they have attacked the EPA in the same way that Donald Trump has? Yes, they would have. Yes, they would have. Would they have continued the warmongering at Bush and Obama? Yes, they would have. What you're arguing about is issues of tone. I agree, his tone is gross. But let's not pretend as if, you know, this is not, Donald Trump is not the Republicans' id. This is what Republicans are. Donald Trump is what Republicans are. He's just honest about it. He's honest about it. And I know this sounds crazy because Donald Trump lies every time he opens his mouth. But he's so bad at lying that he gets across the reality of what's taking place. So no, when Donald Trump says this insane things, this is what these are Republican voters. They put him in that office. This is what they believed. Now, I'm just making this point that all of the harsh and nasty and disgusting things that Donald Trump is doing will be the exact same things that any random Republican would have gotten that office and did. The difference is the tone would have been better. The tone would have been better. We don't like Donald Trump because of his tone. He's too over the top. Look, we're okay with you kicking immigrants out the country. We're okay with you building a wall to prevent people from coming into the country from Mexico. We're okay with you doing all this warmongering and killing people abroad and murdering civilians and all this stuff. We're okay with all this stuff. We're okay with gutting Medicaid, Social Security, all of these social services in order to give plutocrats millions and millions of dollars. We're okay with that. We're okay with that. I just need you to not be racist when you do it. I just need you to not be racist when you do it. Yes, we're okay with Obama kicking all these Hispanics out of the country. But he's not racist. So it's okay. I'm just trying to nail this point down. This difference between substance and tone. Whatever the reason, America seems to be okay with people doing really nasty and disgusting things, including Jeff Flake getting behind, as a Republican, those nasty and disgusting things. We just need your tone to be better when you do it. Just have a better tone. Just have a better tone. It puts us on edge when you're being gross and over the top. have a better tone. You can continue to do the same nasty and disgusting things that Republicans tend to do and Republicans tend to want to do. Just be more amicable about it. Just have a pleasant demeanor about it. Make sure your suit is sparkly. Make sure your shoes are scuffed really well, or not scuffed at all. Make sure they're perfect. Make sure you're a polished human being when you're doing nasty and disgusting things. Jeff Flake can go fuck himself. This has nothing to do with the defense of Donald Trump. What Jeff Flake is saying is perfectly fine. It's just that it shouldn't come from Jeff Flake. It shouldn't come from Jeff Flake. Let's stop acting like on his way out he's somehow endowed with some level of integrity. He's not. He's a typical Republican. It's a bullshit statement. I get it. You don't like Donald Trump. You're going to lose your primary. I don't like Donald Trump either. I think he's a disgusting human being. But when I make these attacks on Trump, I'm making them from a certain basis of, this is what I believe. You can look over my catalog and see that this is what I believe. This kind of humanistic standpoint. You, sir, have ran your history in this party, meaning being a Republican, has been to denigrate and to attack those services and institutions of the government that make sure our water are clean, our air is clean, that make sure people have the goods and the services that they need to go about their lives. That's your catalog. This idea that you're going to look at your grandkids. I have grandkids. I want them to look at me in a particular way. If your grandkids have any level of political clarity, they will look at you a particular way, but it's not going to be the way that you're talking about in the speech. So, I ended at that. I have a few of these. I just saw this, was like, how is this guy making this argument? How is any Republican making this argument? I mean, when I see John McCain and Lindsey Graham, you know, the bromance between those two, and they're having to go at Trump. And it's like, yes, he's horrible, but you are also horrible. You know, you don't like this thing that Trump calls himself, what the globalists versus the nationalists. The issue that people have with globalism is not trade. It's not trade. Is that the plutocrats, the people who are giving these guys money or writing laws, the fuck over everybody else in the country. That's the issue with trade. You guys call it trade deals and all this other stuff. What it should be called is, we're going to fuck people over in this country to make sure rich people have more cash in their pockets. The game is rigged. All of this is a game. Flake doesn't like it because he likes this idea of this globalist thing. The people who are putting money in my pocket like this idea of the globalists. The globalists. It's not that I'm enamored with the nationalists because they come across with their own issues. It's not that at all. Don't misunderstand me. Sometimes people take me attacking one and somehow it's this kind of approval of the other. It is not. I could be angry and distasteful of both, which is the case here. I just don't think Flake has standing to make this case. That's all. I don't think Flake has standing. I don't think any of these Republicans have standing to make this case. You may make an argument about Rand Paul, at least on the military thing. But on the other stuff, he is just as obsequious to the people who are stuffing money in his G-string as any Democrat or any other politician who's in that position, including Donald Trump himself. So this idea that Flake is going to be this kind of integrity-filled guy because he's making his case is baloney. It's baloney. It's bull. All these guys clamoring around Jeff Flake as if he's, you know, he's brimming with integrity. It's coming off of him in waves. This is an integrity-filled Republican. It's bogus. It's bogus. It's absolutely bogus. If you believe that trying to destroy Medicare and Social Security and trying to destroy the social safety net, trying to destroy the EPA, warmongering, if you believe that all of these things are positions of integrity, then yes, Jeff Flake is your guy. If you believe that murdering people abroad and making the lives of people in the United States harder in order to give people who are giving him cash tax cuts is a good thing, then again, Jeff Flake is your guy. I guess what I'm saying is, this is not a position that Jeff Flake can take. He can take what he can say whatever he wants. Shamelessness is not necessarily something that politicians have in spades, or shame is not something they have in spades. But it is shameless. It is shameless. And I don't know if he means it, which will be a neurosis or some kind of psychological condition. Or if this is continued just politics, and he's angry that he's being kicked out, and he's taking a knife and putting it in his gut as he leaves. I don't know which it is. Don't particularly care. The effect is the same. You're looking at this and you're seeing a Republican attack another Republican because of one or two policies that he doesn't necessarily like. Even though, for the most part, they agree on the exact same things. They agree on the exact same things. What I'm getting at is if a Republican took office, they would govern the exact same way. They would just be less over-the-top racist. That's the only difference. If Mike Pence took that office, Flake would shut the fuck up. Flake would be perfectly okay. Even though Pence and Trump would do the exact same things. It's amazing. It's amazing. Like, shame. Shame. Like, where is shame? What happened to shame? Have we become, we're post-shame. That's what we are. We're post-shame. This is what they should call this era. In 500, 600 years, when they look back on this era, they're going to say this was the post-shame era. It's amazing. Fucking amazing. Jeff Flake is a Flake, surprise, twist, sarcasm. Demanji. Yes, Demanji. I remember. I got your email. PT Malm. If he had much integrity, he would have stayed, maybe changed his party, maybe stopped towing the oligarchic line. Because they don't have shame, man. I'm telling you. Look, what Republicans understood was that it takes a certain amount of disingenuousness in order to make the case to be a Republican. Nobody in their right mind is going to say, hey, I'm going to support somebody who's going to exploit me. Nobody would say it. Nobody would own up. Nobody would do that. So Republicans, in the same way the Democrats, come up with different arguments, even though they're going to do different things. This is what we believe in. We also believe in this other stuff. We're not going to say that we believe in this other stuff, but when we get in office, God knows we're going to do this other stuff. Tax cuts, destruction of Medicare and Medicaid, destruction of Social Security, destruction of the EPA, more warmongering, more money to the military, more special forces, more. This is their party. All of this shit about freedom and liberty doesn't apply. I'm sorry. I've heard people make these arguments like, dude, you need to understand Republicans. They have this freedom and liberty. Baloney. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. There's no way. Maybe Rand Paul can make that case. But the other Republicans, these guys who wanted to go into the bedrooms to stop men from having anal sex, those guys believe in a smaller government. Get out of here. The guys who want us to expand our military budget, they somehow believe in a smaller government. You're insane. You're insane. You're insane. It's not freedom and liberty. It's freedom and liberty for the people with means. When they're making these arguments in these cases and they're coming out saying tax cuts, why do you think they're talking about tax cuts? It's not for you. It's not for you. Your economy, your society itself is going to bleed away jobs because bleeding away jobs allows more money for the people at the top. They're going to put in robots and they're going to pass these trade deals that would allow these companies to ship jobs overseas and ship those products back in this country for the American public. Paying people abroad less, lowering their prices, putting more dollars in their pockets. All of these proclamations of freedom boil down to freedom with the people with means. You're in a capitalistic system. Freedom depends purely on how much money you have in your pocket. When they're screaming freedom and freedom and freedom and all this other stuff, freedom for who to do what? Freedom for who to do what? Freedom of people to do means to do whatever the hell they want. That's your society. That's the Republican Party. Now, yes, they have the religious base and all this other stuff, but they use these people in order to get in power because you can't necessarily get the average person to buy into that. You need to find people who have things that they care about more than actual economic self-interest. Hey, you have the racist vote, you got them. You have the religious vote, you got them. And you have the people who are conned into believing that these guys actually mean what they say about budget and everything else. If the Republican Party meant what they said about the budget, we can't tighten the budget one end. We can't spend one red dime. We can't raise the budget ceiling. And then the moment that Trump takes office, they raise it by $9 trillion. Did they care about the budget? Or did they just use it as a political hacking point to go after Democrats? They've been doing it for 20, 30 years. The strategy hasn't changed. The public just hasn't woken up. This is fucking ridiculous. That's all. It's fucking ridiculous. Alright, I'm going to end this because I have a few more that I wanted to get to. My wife and I have a Halloween party tonight. So that should be